Mrs. Flood being revealed as a new incarnation of the Rani, it's the perfect time to learn a bit more about the Doctor's other troublesome school pal. Created by husband and wife duo Pip and Jane Baker, and memorably played by Kate O'Mara, the character debuted in the eponymous serial The Mark of the Rani in 1985. A brilliant biochemist, the Rani used her TARDIS to collect various specimens for her dubious and weirdly complicated scientific experiments. The Rani only appeared twice in Doctor Who, but left a huge impression on the show due mostly to Kate O'Mara's gloriously camp performance. So let's take a deeper look at the character and her history. I'm Ellie for Who Culture, here with 10 things you didn't know about the Rani. Number 10. Dimensions in Time is canon? The last time we saw the Rani, she was facing the 7th Doctor and Ace, and many more, in 1993's Dimension in Time, a special charity crossover with British soap EastEnders. Since then, various explanations have been given for Ace's departure from the TARDIS across lots of different spin-off media. Keenly aware of this, Chris Chibnall shied away from giving too much detail when he reunited Seven and Ace in 2022's The Power of the Doctor. Pete McTighe, however, was a lot less shy while writing the Tales of the TARDIS episode for The Curse of Fenric. His newly written intro and outro scenes heavily hinted when Ace made her decision to leave the TARDIS, with the Doctor saying, "We did have a very busy day, as I remember. Yes, oh yes, the Rani was up to her old tricks." So does this mean that at some point very soon after the events of Dimensions in Time, Ace decided she wanted to leave the TARDIS? Was starting the day with a mind-bending adventure across 30 years of Albert Square just too much for her? And does this mean that the Rani scheme in Dimensions in Time is now canon? Well, I guess time will tell. Maybe. Number 9. Gandalf was almost her companion. Speaking of Dimensions in Time, it was hoped that the Rani would be accompanied by none other than Gandalf himself, Sir Ian McKellen. Kate O'Mara and Ian McKellen working together is a pairing even more enticing than Doctor Who and EastEnders, wouldn't you agree? In the opening scene of Dimensions in Time, the Rani works on her plan to ensnare all the Doctors as the unsettling CGI heads of William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton float by. She's assisted in this by her companion Sirian, who was named after the recently knighted Ian McKellen. Sirian, Sir Ian, get it? This was decided by co-writer David Roden, who was an acquaintance of McKellen. He had hoped that this affectionate tribute would convince McKellen to actually sign on in the role. Alas, it wasn't to be, and Samuel West was cast instead. West would later graduate from Evil Time Lady's assistant to Evil Time Lord when he was cast as Morbius opposite Paul McGann in Big Finish's 8th Doctor Adventures range. Ian McKellen himself would later appear alongside Sylvester McCoy in the Hobbit trilogy, and finally got a role in Doctor Who as the voice of the Great Intelligence in 2012's The Snowmen. Number 8. Anita Dobson isn't the first Rani recast. Although there's a neat symmetry to one soap actress regenerating into another, Anita Dobson isn't technically Kate O'Mara's direct successor. In 2014, Big Finish announced that they had recast the character for an upcoming audio drama, The Rani Elite. The play had originally been written for Kate O'Mara prior to her death in March of that year. 3 months later, Big Finish announced Siobhan Redmond as the new Rani, and revealed that the casting was given the blessing of Kate O'Mara herself. Producer David Richardson said, quote, "Kate's agent got in touch and said that it had been Kate's wish that we proceed with a new incarnation of the Rani. To date, Redmond has played the Rani twice, in 2014's The Rani Elite and 2015's Planet of the Rani. After that, the rights to the character appeared to revert back to her creators. With an extensive list of film and TV roles dating back decades, including Karen Gillan's directorial debut, The Party's Just Beginning, it's utterly bizarre that Siobhan Redmond has never been in televised Doctor Who. That said, we do have more than enough Ranis at the moment. Number 7. She's the first 80s villain to make a comeback. 1980s Doctor Who introduced some great villains. Syl, Fenric, the gods of Ragnarok, the Candyman, yes, I said it, but none of them have been reimagined for the new series. From the Daleks in 2005 to Sutekh in 2024, every Doctor Who monster or villain that's been resurrected in the modern era originated in either the 1960s or the 1970s. There's an argument that Can You Hear Me, Zelin and Rakaya count because they're Eternals, like the ones we meet in the 1983 story Enlightenment. However, they're not strictly villains villains in that story, nor do the Can You Hear Me villains bear much of a resemblance to their 1980s predecessors. Therefore, it's the Rani who truly takes the crown as the first of Doctor Who's 1980s creations to make a return in the 21st century series. With her poise and acidic wit, Archie Panjabi seems to instantly understand the character of the Rani, staying true to Kato Mara's original performance. With her big hair, shoulder pads, and sequins, O'Mara's Rani was a very 1980s villain, so it's fun to see that sort of energy adapted for the 2020s. Number 6. She was put on trial by the Tetraps. What happened to the Rani after the events of Time and the Rani, you might ask? Well, writers Pip and Jane Baker set out to answer that question in the year 2000 with the audio drama The Rani Reaps the Whirlwind, starring Kato Mara. Following on from her proper final appearance in televised Doctor Who in 1987's Time and the Rani was held prisoner by the Tetraps, the odd-looking creatures over which she had ruled in that final serial, and was sentenced to death. However, her sentence is postponed when she agrees to find a solution to the famine that has stricken the Tetrap home planet. Teaming up with her fellow prisoners/lab rats, the Rani sets out to escape. The Rani Reaps the Whirlwind was produced by BBV Productions, and it was a decidedly DIY affair. The play was rehearsed in Kato Mara's home and recorded at a nearby radio studio. O'Mara and presumably the Bakers were keen for more Rani audios to be produced, but the sales of the CD failed to justify the cost of the production. Number 5. Kato Mara preferred Doctor Who to Dynasty. By the time Kato Mara returned to Doctor Who in Time and the Rani, she had spent time in Hollywood, appearing in several episodes of the popular soap opera Dynasty in the mid-1980s. O'Mara played Caress Morell, the long-lost younger sister of Joan Collins, Alexis Carrington. Introduced in Season 6, Caress caused problems for Alexis by attempting to publish a tell-all memoir. While Hollywood is a dream for many British actors, Kato Mara soon grew tired of the relentless Californian sunshine and sought a release from her 5-year contract. Heading back to the UK, O'Mara wrote to Doctor Who producer John Nathan Turner saying, quote, "I can't stand the eternal sunshine. You've got to help me. I want to be in a gravel pit somewhere in the rain, changing in a caravan in front of 20 nosy crew members." Unable to resist opening his new series with a guest turn by a legitimate Hollywood soap star, John Nathan Turner jumped at the chance for another Rani story. It says a lot about how down-to-earth Kato Mara was that she swapped the Californian sunshine for a drizzly quarry in Somerset. Number 4. Stephen Moffat didn't want to bring her back. A mysterious woman popping up at the end of each episode. Where have we seen that before? It's been hard not to think of Missy as we've watched Mrs. Flood pop up throughout Doctor Who Seasons 1 and 2, putting her plan together. That's exactly what Michelle Gomez did throughout Series 8, leading many fans to suspect that she was the Rani. But of course, she was actually a female version of the Master. However, fans shouldn't have been surprised that Moffat chose not to resurrect the Rani opposite Peter Capaldi, given his words on the subject a few years earlier. In 2012, Moffat told SFX magazine that, quote, "No one knows who the Rani is." He did have a point. A general audience knows who Kato Mara is, but they would know her from Dynasty or Howard's Way, or the many other mainstream roles she's had over her career. But the Rani? Unlikely. As Moffat continued, quote, "They all know who the Master is. They know Daleks, they probably know who Davros is, but they don't know who the Rani is, so there's no point in bringing her back. If there's a line, it's probably somewhere there. A line that Russell T Davies has gleefully skipped over 13 years later. Number 3. The Rani's cancelled Auton team-up. Before Doctor Who's mid-1980s hiatus, and presumably before Kato Mara's casting in Dynasty, producer John Nathan Turner had hoped to bring back the Rani in Season 23. Following on from The Two Doctors, legendary Doctor Who writer Robert Holmes had been tasked with writing another 3-part epic. Set in Singapore and featuring the Autons, the Master, the Rani, and the Brigadier. The dubiously titled Yellow Fever and How to Cure It would have followed on from The Mark of the Rani, with the dastardly Time Lady still saddled with Anthony Ainley's Master. A vague outline of the story and a script for Part 1 is believed to have been written, but they've never surfaced. What remains are the vague ideas of the Rani and the Master operating a street theatre in Singapore, presumably featuring Auton performers. The Sixth Doctor and Perry would then team up with a holidaying Brigadier to defeat the two Time Lords and their Auton army. Now, while the story does sound slightly overstuffed, a partnership between the Rani and the Autons does make sense. After all, she's a biochemist, so would surely be absolutely fascinated by the concept of living plastic. Number 2. The Ranis' rights issues. Much like other Doctor Who stalwarts like the Daleks and the Brigadier, the Rani never actually belonged to the BBC. As creators Pip and Jane Baker weren't staff writers, the BBC and other companies had to approach them directly to use the character. Dylan Reese's book Downtime: The Lost Years of Doctor Who revealed that in the early days of Big Finish, the Bakers had declined to work with the company. Interviewed in the book, BBV Productions' Bill Baggs claims that Jane Baker was acting out of loyalty to him. Due to a dispute with Big Finish's founders, that's far too long and complicated to get into here. It's therefore interesting to note that in 2014, shortly after Jane Baker's death, Big Finish released the first of 2 new Rani audios. In 2021, a year after the death of Pip Baker, Nicholas Briggs told the Big Finish podcast that there was a complication in obtaining the rights to the Rani from the estate. It's possible that rights issues prevented the Rani from returning to TV earlier too, though whatever problems there may or may not have been have clearly been smoothed over by the time of Season 2. Number 1. Russell T Davies has been thinking about the Rani for years. It feels like a foregone conclusion that it was Mrs. Flood who plucked the toymaker's gold tooth from the unit helipad in The Giggle. However, the genesis of this idea goes all the way back to 2007's Last of the Time Lords, in which the Master was shot dead by his wife Lucy Saxon before being cremated by the 10th Doctor. After the Master's Jedi funeral, a female hand is seen plucking his ring from the ashes, cackling into the night. During the audio commentary for Last of the Time Lords, Russell T Davies jokes to Phil Collinson and Julie Gardner that the hand belongs to the Rani. It didn't, of course, and instead belonged to one of Harold Saxon's acolytes and Lucy Saxon's future female prison governor. And who did we last see as a prison governor? Mrs. Flood, aka the Rani. Russell T Davies previously stated that he'd been thinking about Sutek's return for years, so it stands to reason that the Rani holding the key to the Master's resurrection is another one of those plot lines he's left bubbling on the stove. And that concludes our list. Honestly, it's so great to see the return of the Rani in Season 2. And speaking of Season 2, if you haven't already, make sure that you're following all of our coverage of Season 2. We have ups and downs reviews, we have spoiler discussions, we have Easter egg breakdowns, we have it all. So go check it out. In the meantime, I've been Ellie for Who Culture, and in the words of Riversong herself, goodbye, sweeties.